Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me, as always, is...
Someone pick me. Edward of Edward is Truth. Ooh, I'm Edward of Edward is Truth. I don't know. I'm tired. Hi.
I like it.
Eddie.
I like it.
Eddie of Edward is... Edward.
Edward is a lie.
Edward is a lie. Because Eddie is Truth.
Yeah.
Eddie is Truth doesn't sound as cool. And it's not the quote that I got from my acting teacher.
Well, we are not starting over, so we are talking about Barbarian, released September 9th, 2022. This is a movie that is extremely... I want to say it's very popular. A lot of people have really praised this, but it's also very polarizing at the same time because I think I haven't heard anything like extremely negative about it, but it just seems that my take is that is it really that great? I mean, I was gonna say my take on like what the negativity is, but I guess that is kind of my take if I'm revealing my hand too soon. But
and they're gonna find out eventually.
I know, right? It was a matter of time. But this is one of those movies, like, because we discussed this, I think in the Inthregan episode, of just how current horror, or just people are being like the horror genre is going through a renaissance right now. It is the best that it's ever been. Everything that's coming out is just like among some of the most ingenious horror movies that we've seen in a very long time. And I think my opinion was that, like, you know what, I understand, like, I think that most aspects of all horror movies that are coming out these days are just in terms of like production, cinematography, directing, acting, editing, everything is really great. But the writing, it's always the writing I get so annoyed by just some of the screenplay choices that we see in a lot of movies. And I want to get into this one because I really there's a lot that I really do like about this movie, and I really wanted to love it like on my first viewing of seeing it in the theater because it was getting so much like great word of mouth. And I just remember feeling my face at the end of them, not like touching it, but just like feeling my expression of when the credits rolled. And it just, if I could like try to replicate it for anyone watching right now, it's just probably like confusion and disgust. Like maybe it looked like
furrowed
that.
Brow and like a
like slightly like gaped mouth, like maybe like a bit of
confused.
And just like really that and I watched it again last night, and I don't want to say that I liked it less. I think like I probably it's still the same kind of response. I like it. I'm quite confident with how I feel about it. But oddly enough, I found like the things that I did like about the movie, or like the story elements that worked for me, seemed cheapened this time because I knew what the end result was going to be. But I was able to watch the movie this time on more of a technical aspect and really appreciate the cinematography, because I think the cinematography is really good in this movie. Like, it's excellent. But the story, we will get to it. But I'm very curious. I'm hoping, obviously I always want an authentic response from you. I'm hoping that you really loved it, because I want a contentious debate, because it will really... Because if you don't like it either, I feel like I'm going to have to work hard to like think of like good things to say, just so it's not an entirely negative episode. So please tell everyone, what did you think of Barbarian? Pressure's on.
I'm so tempted to just like segue to the premise just to keep you on pins and needles, but but I don't want to piss you off. So I will say, I just watched it. I literally 20 minutes before you called to begin all
commence
of this. Was the end of the end credits for me, and I'm shook. I'm unsettled. enjoyed the movie. But there's a lot to talk about. There, obviously, that's what we're here for. But so there you go. I've shown my hand. Now let me just do a premise, get out of the way, and then we can move on.
All right.
In Michigan for a job interview, a young woman arrives at her Airbnb rental late at night, only to find a strange man is already staying there. After carefully navigating the situation, she decides to stay the night, but soon discovers that there is more to be afraid of in this house than the other guest. Could there be a squatter, a home invader, or something more barbarian? Huh? Not my best.
It's your go-to. I want to. Okay, I should say just to amend my overall feelings. Like I do like this. Like I enjoy it. I just think that of everything that came out last year, and I think probably because this was so hyped up beforehand, this is kind of my biggest. It is a huge disappointment, if not like the biggest disappointment of 2022. Like, forget Halloween Ends. Like, I was expecting a fucking shit show with that, but like this movie, I just like the way that it started.
Yeah,
was so Hitchcockian to me. Like, just like the suspense of like the mystery and not knowing what was happening. That where it kind of like took a turn, I just felt myself being pulled further and further out of the movie, that by the end I was just like, okay, yeah, that did not work for me.
And that's why you kind of like give the writing demerit to the movie, because had the screenplay mapped out in a different kind of way, you might feel differently, or might feel more strongly in your positivity toward the movie, is what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. I think that's what it is. I think, like, okay, just to because I was even thinking about this last night. I don't like the fact that, because the first act is spectacular. Those two, the acting between them is incredible. Bill Skarsgård, one of the Skarsgård.
Yes, yes.
Pennywise, hot Pennywise, is like incredible. Like, he does such a good job with that character, because it's just like, I don't know how, like, you're equal parts like charming but also like really sketchy, and like she's just playing it so well. There's I think she's an English actress as well, and I'm always so blown away, but like when you see these people in actual interviews and they're like, oh my gosh, she's British. Like she's so good with like her American accent.
Just in there, when I got the screenplay for Barbarian, and you're like, what the fuck? But her name is Georgina Campbell, the actress who plays Tess. Yeah,
they're excellent, and I just love, like, I love things that are just like almost like stage plays of just like, you have two people and there's a situation, and just like how everything is like unraveling, and just the uncertainty of everything, because the trailer, I know you're not a trailer person, but the trailers for this movie literally just showed material from that first act. There might have been like snippets of things from later on, but most, like, as far as anyone knew, the premise of this was she goes to this Airbnb, someone is double booked, and something is not right, and that is a phenomenal, like, opening of just like, if that was like the pitch of just like, okay, cool, but then it's just like, I could just, and I know that the writer director, he had a lot of trouble selling this to studios, because I imagine that pitch meeting where it's just like, like, you have the hook like that, and it's just great, and then what happens next? And it's just like, well, then, then we meet this guy in California, and he's an actor, and he's been fired for, like, once you start to get into that, it's just like, okay, I don't think this is going to work. And I obviously that was the case with so many studios that passed on it. But I think, like, everything in that opening is so tense, because the way that it's paced, like it's taking its time and really like building up to something. I thought that the whole thing was going to take place on one night. So just seeing that, like, no, like the next day she wakes up and she goes out into the neighborhood and you see what was initially like shrouded in darkness. It's just like, here's this neighborhood that is derelict. Nobody, like, this is this one renovated house. Like, this is very strange. And then when she meets her future employer and she's just like, where are you? Like, you're staying in Brightmoor? Like, that's, be careful. That you're like, okay, something, there's a mystery here. We don't know what it is yet. And we don't know if he's involved in it. We don't know what's happening. That it, I wasn't keeping track of like the time of just like when she finally went into, or like found the rope and pulled the thing open and went into it and saw the room with the bed and the camera and the bucket. But at that point, it's just like, okay, like the plot is thickening. We're getting more. And then he goes down there and he's at first lost. She's just like, where are you? And then we see him and he's just like, shh. And then literally you see the monster come out. I think we're still maybe 40 minutes into the movie, 30, 40 minutes. I didn't clock the time, but the monster comes out. We see the monster and then it cuts to black. And then we're introduced to this new storyline. And before I even get into the secondary storyline, because I want to really discuss this one first, is that I think that was a mistake right there. They should not have shown what it was, because it was almost like they're showing their hand way too soon of what is down there. I think that could have been something that was left on the table of like whatever the surprise was for way later on in the movie to continue, because like that was the strength, was the mystery and the suspense for me. So once we finally see what it is, I just kind of like, okay, like what now? And then we're introduced to the next act, the whole Justin Long stuff. So that was, let's just put it this way, if this was a 40-minute short movie and that was the end, I mean, I would have been like, oh, I want more, but I would have been like, but that was great. Like that was a great 40-minute movie. Like if that was a pitch in itself of like a movie. But yeah. What are your thoughts on just like at least the first act?
The first act in and of itself, I agree with you as far as the trailer, like, 'cause this was one that I saw, because the trailers I tend to avoid the most are for known properties. Like I've said in the past, if I know I'm going to go see it, I don't need a trailer. I already know I'm going to go see it. Yeah. But with this one, I think it was before some other horror movie I was watching, maybe Bodies, I don't know. Yeah. Or maybe even earlier than that. Maybe it was before Nope. I remember seeing the trailer and being like, oh, that looks like it might be good. Like, I'm already tense. I'm already, like, everything, the anxiety you have just showing up to an Airbnb in an unfamiliar territory, I think they achieved incredibly successfully. Also, I really enjoyed the filmmaking as it opened up, because I could feel the filmmaker having fun with me in terms of, like you already mentioned, the dark ass street that's, where the only light is coming from the house that you're supposed to go to, which should, I guess, in some cases feel inviting, but I don't like dark ass streets, so there's that. And then even the fact that, like, when Bill Skarsgård answers the door, or Keith answers the door, and basically tells her, I'm renting this place. And she's like, I'm renting this place. And there's a clap of thunder and lightning that happens right after she says it. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting like spooky movie vibes. Okay, fun. Like old school, like kind of like, it's the same thing that makes me want to applaud every time Carrie tells her mother she's going to the prom. And Piper Laurie goes, prom, thunder crash. And also, I agree, Bill Skarsgård is an absolutely perfect candidate to play that guy who, at first sight, you're probably going to be like, oh, wow, hi, what's your name? And then, but there's something, not just because of the Pennywise thing, but there is a weird quality, like even his awkwardness, which I found incredibly endearing, but I loved that I couldn't even trust that. Like, is endearing because this guy is legitimately charming and really doing the best he can to make space for her to feel comfortable and everything like that, and no pressure, no, you know, hands-off kind of mentality, but you're welcome kind of thing? Or is this all a ploy? Is it all a game? And the fact that it even gets addressed when they finally get comfortable around each other and start talking, that was like, I'm wondering, because like it's bringing back kind of like a psycho parlor scene with Marion Crane eating sandwiches and milk while Norman sits there and goes on about his mother, except for the fact that there's no discomfort at that point. By the time they're having the exchange, there is this kind of like dropping of guard that I trust. Like all of a sudden I found myself trusting Keith, whether I was supposed to or not. At that point I didn't know, but I appreciated that.
I love that you bring up Psycho, because that is, you know, I'll get into that more later, but it's just like, it's just a perfect meter to like compare the two. I mean, even though it's not fair to compare Psycho to anything, but just in terms of like story structure. But I just wanted to say, like, I love that. Like the fact that there's the awkwardness and then they talk about the awkwardness after. It's just something so relatable about it that makes them feel human. And I think that there's so much empathy that's put into the performances and the direction, like in this sequence with these characters, that it works so well. That's why like I'm so hooked in with everything that's happening here.
Yeah, and I loved that Tess was smart. Like when she got his ID and she took a photo of it on her phone. I was waiting for her to send it to somebody, but if it's in the cloud, you know, maybe somebody will find it if they're looking for her. I don't know how it works. And then not drinking the tea, and then not even drinking the wine at first until, you know, I don't even want to say
that she's smart, but she knows that like she's making bad decisions, but she's aware that she's making them. And she's like, am I going to regret these decisions? So there's like, she does walk a fine line of just like, like she's like, am I like, it's in the trailer when she like goes into the bed and she's like, is this right? Like, you know, do I feel comfortable with all this? But I'm going to do it anyway because she's in a desperate situation.
But I didn't feel like they were even, I don't know, I felt like given all of the elements that were against her, like the fact that it was like a rainy night on a dark street in a bad neighborhood. I mean, she didn't even know how bad it was yet. She hadn't been charged by that gentleman whose name I can't remember. I'll look it up when we come back to
gentleman, yes.
The gentleman. He had a name. But he has a name. I looked on IMDb, but I don't remember what it was. Anyway, but even prior to that, like, I mean, if you're going to make the decisions she's making, I like the fact that she seemed to be if we're not going to say smart, then cautious as she was. Like, she didn't just kind of go, oh, wow, great, thanks. And, you know, she had more than one moment where she had to keep her wits about her. She had to keep her head on. She had to, like, you know, stick around and just kind of weigh the pros and cons of each, like, step that she took. So I really appreciated that. Oh, because I half expected when he left the note and wasn't there in the morning, I half expected him to have disappeared, and I still didn't know if I should be trusting him or not, because with the open door and all of that, I'm like, he could be in league with somebody else who's in the home, and the whole thing is that he's like the front man to get them to drop their guard, and then the sick fuck, you know, is the one, I mean, they're both sick fucks if he were in league with someone, but the one who does the dirty work, as it were, you know, like gets her downstairs and takes care of her while he's up living like the life. But I half expected when she was after the job interview and she told her employer, thank God she got the job, when she told her
probably
that
doesn't have it anymore.
That was one thing that I thought as the credits were running. I was like, she better still fucking have that job. It's only been a couple of weeks. Come on. But because she told her she was going to call her the next day, and I'm like, please don't hire someone else. You're going to break my heart. But anyway, the fact that it's oh shit, no, I forgot the point I was going to make. Oh, I have expected when she was having that exchange with her, and she just said like, well, you know, there's a convention in town. I have expected her to go like, there's no convention in town. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Because that would have been, I don't know. That
would have been fun.
I really
that would have been like a fun misdirect.
Because like, then why did he lie about it? And you know, but I was still not trusting him. Like, I was kind of trusting him, but not. Like, I'm watching the movie. I'm walking a tightrope, and
there are so many red herrings. You know how I love red herrings. There are so many red herrings in that first act alone. Like, even, like, she walks up to the house. She's getting, like, text messages from what I could only assume is, like, an ex or something, you know, someone that she's trying to avoid. There's the whole thing of just, like, the lockbox isn't working. He's in the place. It's just, you know, he's having this nightmare or whatever. You know, she wakes up and she's like, that's really strange. Like, the movie could have gone in so many directions. So it was set up so well.
Yeah. Well, I also have to say, I think the final thing that endeared me to Keith and that made me, you know, where the needle kind of moved and I thought, okay, I feel like I can trust you enough, if I were her, to, like, sleep in that room and everything. The duvet cover hack. The fact that he, like, pulled it over himself.
That is not how I would ever put on a duvet. That is not a good hack.
I thought it was great.
What also, I don't put it over my whole body. Like, I'll put my arms in and, like, then put, like, my fingers into the corners, and then I'll grab the duvet through, like, the sheet or, like, through the duvet cover, and then just kind of, like, so it never, like, goes on top. I mean, it's the same idea, like, but it's just more practical, you know?
Yeah. But the fact that he put himself, like, in a vulnerable spot also, because now he can't see at all, he can't hear as well, you know, like, she could do anything she wanted to him at that particular
Maybe that would have been the twist. She's actually the killer.
No, but but also, I mean, again, like, with the filmmaking, like we're talking about, like, once she's asleep or, you know, whatever, laying in the bed, and then just the nighttime sounds before the doors are, like, opening and closing before we even notice that, just hearing the creaky and all that, I'm just like, this is the shit that fucks me up. Like, this is while I was still getting everything ready to record with you, the house is quiet, and I'm hearing little crackle. It's a windy night, so there's all kinds of noises around.
You get, like, there's even, like, earlier, like, the rumble of the washer or the washing machine, and, like, just seeing, like, that long hallway. Yes. And just, like, you know, where are they walking off to? It's, you know, I even love, like, the jump scare where, you know, when she comes out of the bathroom and she's like, where did you go? And he, like, sneaks up behind her and he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like,
I was getting my phone.
It worked, like, because it was like, it made logical sense. He was going to get his phone, and, you know, she's already on edge, so, you know, and he's on edge because she's on edge, so it's just like it all worked. There's just a synergy about it.
Yeah, it felt great. It definitely didn't set up the movie that followed, but for me, that's more a feature and less a bug, because one of the, you know me, I think I've mentioned it on a pod before, curveballs, I like them. I like when the filmmaker kind of leaves me in the lurch, but with intent, and kind of serves up something that I can jump on just as easily. But we'll get to that, because we're still making our way through the first act, because which goes through the fucking door and goes into the basement and pulls that fucking rope. Yeah, for the toilet paper, and pulls that fucking rope, and the thing opens up and everything. Okay.
I just want to say, like, I like the setup of her getting locked in there too. Like, as implausible as it would be that there's this door that just magically closes and locks.
It's just like
from
an
the one
unfortunate
side.
feature of
the
house.
But the fact that she gets locked in there, her cell phone is upstairs, and she's now has the keys on her, because he even says, like, just make sure that you put the keys back in the lockbox. And that doesn't, because the guy was chasing her. That homeless dude, he created. So, like, you know, if he just was not running up to her and just being like, don't go in there. Like, if he was just like, hey, maybe
his name was Andre.
Yeah.
Andre is the character's name, played by James Butler.
Yeah.
No, he Andre needed to chill, but I understand, like, the the urgency of the situation if you know the shit that's going down and you really don't want her to get in that house, but to not have the self-awareness that, say, Keith did, that running at a woman who is, you know, like a head shorter than me, on a street in a bad neighborhood, screaming at her as I charge her is not. It's not going to make her feel like you have her best interest at heart.
Well,
you know,
we'll talk
if
about
you yell,
him.
that's one thing.
We'll talk about him towards the end because there's like a lot of questions.
There's a lot. Oh,
with
there's
him,
a lot.
But
So she goes through the door and it closes, and the rope and the wall and all the thing. And I had my first question for you in a situation like this. You're in the basement. You pull the rope because it's a rope in a wall. Let's see what happens. And that magical door opens. What do you do?
I mean, the thing that you have to consider is that she has nowhere else to go because the door's locked. She doesn't have a phone. She's in a derelict neighborhood. Nobody is around other than the guy who, as far as she was concerned, was coming to attack her. So, I mean, any danger, like you don't know what's back there or if someone's in there, but that's not exactly your thinking. It could just be like, it could be like a panic room, like a feature in a house. So,
but what do you do?
Yes, but I'm just setting up the situation there of just like, I'm locked in a basement. I don't have my phone. Yeah. Someone outside in a neighborhood where nobody else is around could possibly be threatening my life. I'll probably look in there. I'd probably go look to see what is back there. She didn't go as far as Keith did that first time. She didn't find the extra doorway that led down even deeper. She just saw that room. But once you see that room, I'm just like, nope. Well, that's what she said. No. That's what she said. Yep. She's like, nope.
Before she even went in, I appreciated that. And I appreciated, again, like the mirror, like the reflecting the light in there and using the mirror that way, because that didn't occur to me right away. Now it will, if it ever happens to me. But I'm going to keep my distance, and I am not going in there. And the fact that, because I was just kind of like, okay, good, she's not going in there, she's holding a mirror there to like, so if something does come out, she at least gets to see it and get a head start, I don't know, just letting her survival instincts kick in and like, okay, what can I use as a weapon? Because that's what I would be thinking, but I know I'm in a horror movie also, so
that's like, she doesn't know that. And as far as like her investigating that whole basement was just sort of to try to find anything that she could use to somehow expedite her getting out of the basement. So it was just happenstance that you're just like, oh, what's this? So,
but one thing go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, so it's just like when there's nowhere really else to go, like especially when you know that nobody can get into the house, like all she can really do is stand at the window and wait for Keith and bang on it, which fortunately she was, the timing was like lined up when he returned home. So if anything, it's almost like better to just make sure that you know what's in there. So if, rather than just leaving it and then always having to watch your back and just be like, is someone coming out of that space while simultaneously waiting at the window to see if someone's coming? It's not a good situation that she was in.
No, it's also this, there's this, I don't know if it's technically a phobia, but I do have a fear after seeing, I think a YouTube video I covered on this pod at some point about like a woman who was living inside the walls or the bowels rather of like a house. And this guy would like open his refrigerator and like he'd find during the day like juice that he thought was like half full was now only a quarter full, and like food would be missing and stuff, and he didn't know what was going on. And so he just turned on a camera because he thought he might have a ghost, and he's like, "There's a poltergeist drinking my juice." And there was a woman who came through like a fixture on the wall. It looked like it was a sconce or something, and just kind of pushed her way out, and it was up high, and she just kind of lowered herself down onto his counter quietly. He was asleep this whole time. Quietly moved a chair out from the counter so she could step on that to set foot on the floor, and then just went in his refrigerator and ate and drank and subsisted and everything, and then disappeared back into the sconce in the wall. So
I've seen videos that.
Ever since I saw that shit, I am so hyper-vigilant of my house. And anything that's like home invasion is scary in and of itself, but when the invasion is coming from inside the house, fuck me, man. Yeah. Like, I am not about that. So the fact that I couldn't lose the fact that she was asleep in that bed the night before, her door was open, He said he didn't open it, and I did. At that point, I was like, okay, I think I can trust him. So that means somebody fucking opened it. And if I'm trapped now and there's this weird secret wall, I ain't going in there because there could have been somebody in the house last night who opened up my fucking door.
Because we did see when she, I believe, maybe I'm misremembering, when she did leave her room, don't we see the door to the basement close as she's coming out into the hallway?
Yes, as it closes like on its own, which also invited a whole like, okay, where are we?
Yeah.
What is this? I loved the question mark you put over my head, but it definitely closed. Yeah, as if somebody had been up there and open just to check on them, just to make sure the babies were sleeping peacefully. Anyway, but another thing I appreciated, although I mean, even though I'm critiquing her for it, the character, I'm not critiquing the writing because I know she has to go down there. But one thing that I liked, I didn't notice any score. Maybe there was prior to that. I didn't notice any score though until she started to go through that threshold into the bowels of the basement, as it were, like through the secret rope wall, and all of a sudden there was this synthetic thing happening that felt very John Carpenter-y to me, and I appreciated that. And I love a synthetic score anyway because it didn't feel disembodied. I felt like, because sometimes synthetic score can feel that way, but when you use it in a way that can still pack emotion and still kind of like, I don't know, instill tension in my body, like in a very organic way, I appreciate synthetic sound creating organic fear in me. So that I liked. And I think I noticed the score throughout the rest of the time. I was like it kept matching my pulse. It almost felt like there was always like a pulse and then like some kind of eerie thing happening over it that was really characteristic and stood out to me. But even when she reached that first room down the dark hallway and everything, you find a room. It's got a video camera, a disgusting bed, and a bucket, and a bloody handprint on the wall. I'm not stepping in that room. I'm like, holy shit, I'm out. I am calling the police. Do I have, what's his name's number? Keith's number? Can I call it? Or can I at least sit on the porch?
But you can't because your phone
is locked. Or I
is
can't sit on the
locked
porch. I can't sit on the porch because,
your phone is locked upstairs. You're locked in a basement. That's what I mean. Like you're.
Then I'm locking the room, and I'm getting myself somewhere where I can get behind a locked door. And hopefully also see the street. So whenever Keith arrives, because I can't go out there and wait on the stoop because Andre's out there. Once Keith arrives, I can get him and be like, okay, get back in the car. Get back in the car. There is something down there, and that was one thing that pissed me off about Keith was the whole. People kept saying throughout this movie at inappropriate times, calm down. And that fucking pissed me off when he told Tess to calm down, because I don't care how hysterical anyone seems when I go into a house. If they're talking to me about like a room that goes down there and they're freaking out about it, I don't care if I barely know them. Okay, let's go. Let's get in my car. Let's drive away. Let's go see if we can get some help. Go down there with a team of people who will go ahead of us, and let's investigate. Let's find out, let's
I don't know. Like, I'm a naturally curious person. So everything feels realistic there. I like, in his position, it's just like, I'm not just going to go. Like, I want to at least assess this for myself and see, what I should do. Because I don't know you. We've just met last night under weird circumstances. I want to make sure that I just can also attest to, what you're saying, just so we can go to report this to whoever ourselves and both have the same story. And
you're making me itchy.
He even says just like, okay, well, because she's like, I'm getting out of here. And she's like, well, can you please at least wait here for me in case there is something weird.
In case I get locked in too.
Yeah.
Just in case I get locked in too.
And I feel like
rational.
That's completely rational. It feels realistic. There's nothing, and I mean, you have to look at it from other perspectives. Like her freaking out like that, he has no idea what he walked into. She's in the basement where she apparently locked herself in. She's like going on about something that makes no sense to him. It's, as far as they know, there isn't like there's not a whole system of tunnels under there. They haven't gotten that far yet. That there's no reason to believe that there's someone else in the house.
No, but also just like the fact that it could be a scene where something terrible happened, like a bucket. I mean, he makes it sound like you just saw a bed and a bucket. No, I saw a bloody handprint and I saw a camera. Like, I mean, oh God. So, okay.
Well,
so
that's probably why I would die in a horror movie, because I would be the one. I need to see it. I just want to go look.
I would like just be like, I just at least need to report what I saw before I go investigating. I need somebody outside knowing that we're here and that the two of us are going to go down together.
I mean,
or whatever.
we already saw how useless the police were in the scene.
Of course,
that came right.
But
before
at least there could be a record of it. At least there can be.
Oh, they probably would not keep a. It's just like
no, but if you call, but you're not talking to the actual like cops on the beat and everything like that. If you call an office, at least you can like have it on file and be like, okay, and can you send someone?
I don't even trust.
Okay,
the
well at
police
least you
in this
have
movie
a record of this,
to do that.
and let me speak to your superior. Like, I mean, no, and I'm not depending on them, but I want to cover again, like the same way she took a picture of the ID. I want to cover as many bases as possible, and I feel like
even the Airbnb, like they didn't make sure that they checked out. When they were supposed to.
God, call the Airbnb. Like, totally. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Well, they never... I mean, that was the worst Airbnb ever. Like the most unprofessional. Can we just talk about... Like, first, they never returned her call after the first night. They never even... As far as we know, they never... I mean, maybe she did get a call, a few days later to follow up because she didn't have access to her phone or whatever. But when... their client, like Justin Long, calls them and he's like, brings up a really good point. Maybe he was a little too aggressive about it, but she's just like, okay, bye, click. And even like when he went in and the receptionist was like, oh yeah, they said you'd be coming by. Like these people did not give a shit about the business that they were running. So I don't have faith in anyone in this movie to do anything right. Like whether it be the police or the Airbnb people, I mean, even as like, I don't want to say that it's unrealistic because it very well, could reflect a real situation here. Mm-hmm. But I loved how like heightened it was of just how unreliable everything else was, because it really made that opening act feel claustrophobic with everything else that was going on. Where it just like the only person that she can trust at this point is this person who we don't even know if she can trust. So it's like that just added to everything. That I really commend that this movie, like this opening act is superior to anything else. I will even say to like X and Pearl that came out last year. Like this opening act, I'm like, this is the best fucking movie I've seen in a long time. Oh wait,
well, because that's another thing just to lead into like the next act is. Because I was with her and I understood when she said like, I am not going back in that room. It's like, okay, but I got to see it. I'm like, fine, you do whatever you fuck you have to. But I can't because what just happened is real, and you go do whatever little detective work you feel you need to. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Especially after I go through there because I'm not hearing from him anymore, and I'm like, fucker, what did you do? Because then you go to it was scary enough, like what you already exposed yourself to as Tess. And then you like go through this other door to look down at this stony stairwell. Yeah. And well is an operable word because it feels literally like you're going down a stone rabbit hole or something like that.
I can't believe that she almost allowed herself to get locked down there for the second time. That was the one thing I was just like, what are you doing? Don't do that.
When she walked past bloody human-sized cages, I was like, you need to get out. I don't care how he got himself into something. That's on him. Yeah. You're going to come back with whatever cavalry you can, but you need to get out is how I was feeling. But again, like not criticizing the movie, just totally engrossed and caring too much about what was going on. And then after the whole someone bit me and then the reveal, I didn't have a problem with the reveal because it's not like it answered any questions for me. It only created more because I couldn't tell if we were onto something quasi supernatural, or if that was the only person who was down there.
Yeah.
I was speculating, like, is this going to be like The Descent, where there is an army?
No, I understand that. I think that what I mean is that it's because even though, like, you had more questions, I don't think that the film really, like, it filled in gaps for us. It, like, basically told us in not so many words, this is what happened. This is the origin of this person, technically, that's down there. But just the fact that we don't really, like, there isn't any new twists about who's down there after that it was basically like, this is it. This is the movie, and now we've still got 2/3 of it left. I've already seen the monster. I know what's down there. It's not, there's, like, whatever else you can reveal is not going to be, it's not going to, you can, at that point, like, what they do is just like, okay, well, it's like a copy of a copy, like, it was like inbreeding, or whatever they alluded to, but it wasn't like, there wasn't like a bigger thing behind, not necessarily like a conspiracy, but it was just like, it was a lot of buildup. Let's just put it this way, because you talk about how, like, there's a curveball, and you like curveballs, and I love curveballs too. But I feel that the movie that follows the movie that we got at the beginning was never more interesting to me than how it started, and this is where, you know, I'll bring in a comparison to Psycho, because when we talked about Psycho, we talked about how, you know, the movie starts off with Janet Leigh. We're already in a very compelling story about this woman who already has, like, there's so much empathy developed for her situation of, like, what she does and how she runs away and where she gets to, that by the time we get the switcheroo and it's like, no, that was just the MacGuffin, this is the actual movie, I'm super excited, because it's like, wow, this is an even more interesting, like, that was a great fucking movie. This is an even better movie. Like, I love this story that I did, like, it didn't make me miss the Marion story, but even when we did that episode, you discussed how the Marion story never ended, because there was still an entire storyline of how her sister and her fiance were searching for her for the entire movie, and how that kind of ran parallel to all of the Norman Bates stuff. So it still felt very relevant. Whereas with this movie, with Barbarian, we get that brilliant opening. We get all the stuff with Tess and Keith, and then the movie just switches to a completely new character and proceeds to almost do the same thing over again, but with him. And the only thing that's really different is the tone, because it's no longer a serious tone. It's more comedic. We're seeing it from the perspective of a character who is not very sympathetic at all. Like, we're like, even in terms of like the empathy that we have for him, I feel that it's thrown out the window very quickly when we really kind of get a look at, like, you know, when he's talking, when he calls his parents, or his mom calls him, and he's just kind of like, you know, it's all her fault, and, but, you know, just like the typical thing. And then his friend calls and he's like, what up, F-bomb? And it's just like, this is I don't care about you. And now I'm going to watch you basically come into this house and be in the we're back to square one with a different character in the same house. And I just felt like we've already seen this movie and we saw it done better in the first act. So now I have to watch Justin Long go down there. And I know that a lot of people, because I even talked to my sister on the phone, she was like, oh, you got to see Barbarian. I'm like, I've seen it. And she's like, but how good was it when he was like down there and he saw the room, and then he's like, oh, wow, I can like measure the square footage and that. And I'm just like, I didn't know, like I didn't appreciate that kind of humor, because we started with such a serious horror story. And to have him go down there and just like be so cavalier, it's like he didn't even notice, other than when he accidentally sat on the bed and was like, ew, gross. That like there was no red flags about that at all. That I'm just, it was the same scenario, different character, and very different tone. And I felt like that didn't it didn't transcend, like the story, you know, it didn't do anything new or different. Like, it was a curveball, but not in a curveball in a story way. It wasn't telling us anything new. It was just like, okay, let's put this asshole down here now, you know?
Okay. I mean, again, I think it's a bug for you, feature for me, but like feature like in big bold letters. Because one of the things I really appreciated right from the get-go was the blackout, and now we're on the beach, and I'm like, where the fuck are we? What? Who? And I'm like, I feel like I'm chasing the movie at this point. And I'm looking at Justin Long, and all I could think was, oh god, is he going to get tusked again? Like,
Never seen
is that why they cast him? And then we got into his situation, and I was riding along with the movie, but I was also trying to kind of like draw parallels between what was happening with him and just like the themes that were being brought up and everything like that. And I mean, I guess one criticism I could come up with for this movie is it's largely binary as far as like, you know, male versus female and everything like that. But I'm not going to say that these those themes in and of themselves don't exist. I mean, if you know, are identify as male or identify as female and you're cis and hetero,
that's your problem
with
the movie?
No, I'm not saying. I am literally spitballing here, but no, because the thing is, like, even because while they're exploring those themes that have already been explored, you know, to death cinematically, like, I was still compelled by them because I'm watching people live inside them. Like, it's not brought up like some kind of cerebral, completely like disengaged thing. It's connected into how these characters relate to each other and to the other people who, some of whom we never even see on screen. So I thought that was compelling because with AJ, it didn't take long. I think it was after they finished that phone call on the road, and then he started like talking about the properties out in Michigan. I'm like, okay, I thought those might be his. Okay, so he's going to go to Michigan, and he's got to go to the house, and he's got to figure it all out. All right, gotcha. And I started wondering, oh my God, before he ever got out there, what if AJ is the Barbarian? Like, what if he's the one who's like running all of that? So again, the red herring thing is still working for me. And then finding out that like a couple weeks have gone by, and then like there were other things like him. Everything you just described about his interaction with his mother over the phone and his interaction with his buddy in the bar and everything like that, yeah, that turned me off, absolutely. But the thing that I still found compelling was, where are we going to go with this character? Because I know he is not sympathetic. He's not introduced to be sympathetic. We don't know the, you know, like the level until we get to the bar when he really, you know, just lays it all out for his friend as much as he can. I think that's the most candid he is, like the whole movie. And says the line, she just took some convincing about this woman who's this actress. Or was she an actress? Yeah, she was an actress who accused him of rape. Watching him flip from that to this drunk, weepy guy on the phone. And Justin Long is so good because it didn't make me sympathize with him, but it gave him dimension. I was sitting there just kind of like, yeah, it's all going to creep up on you later. Like, well, if I did do something bad and if I am a bad person, which came up even later in the movie, like those kinds of things, it's going to back up on you, and you ultimately get to decide who you're going to be from here on out.
It definitely gave him...
Yeah.
It definitely gave him dimension, but it did not... You know, like, what we had spent so much time developing this relationship with Tess, and to a certain extent Keith, but mostly Tess. And she just... And if that was the last we ever saw of Tess, like, so be it, you know, at the before that blackout... but just seeing her come back again afterwards, like, just the fact that we're going to take this break from her, I would much rather have seen that movie where she is stuck down there and having to figure out her own survival. That's a more interesting story to me, because I will admit, I was intrigued by the Justin Long stuff for a bit. I think it was probably after like about 5 or 7 minutes that I'm just like, okay, can we get back to the movie? And when I saw that they were, because I had that same thought too, like maybe this is his operation. He's the one that's kind of, it's like this big like Hollywood conspiracy, and it goes back to this little Airbnb in Detroit. You know, I was intrigued, but once I saw that they're just, you know, he's none the wiser to what's going on. He shows up at the house. I couldn't care. And just, yes, there's more dimension to it, to his character that we see, even though I just like, he's so despicable. I mean, I'll give it this, like, great performance of just like making a character that I just like despised. But I just like, I wasn't interested in, this was not his story. And I felt like we were being forced to watch his story. And I just thought that like, that wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair to the character, like to the audience, or just like at least me as an audience member of, you know, how we were set up with Tess, who I thought was amazing, loved her, we're gonna push her to the wayside so we can focus on this, which goes nowhere. His arc in this movie is just like, it's such bullshit.
Oh, I disagree. Oh, I couldn't disagree more.
I hated it.
Okay, because that's another thing. Like, I didn't feel like she was so much pushed to the wayside in a way that was like to the movie's detriment, as I felt like, oh my gosh, what the fuck is going on, and how is he going to find her? And maybe I'm going to complain about minute things that probably I'm not even really.
I don't even care about.
Yeah, but if because again, like they could have left it ambiguous. Like the reveal of the mother didn't bother me so much as, now that I'm thinking about it, well, if we hadn't seen her smash Keith's head to the point where we know he's dead, he's not coming back from that, as she bashes him against the walls of this cavernous place, and then it goes black. If we could have gone black without knowing what happened to either of them, so we're wondering, okay, somebody has to survive that, but who's it going to be? And because like right up to the point where he was in the dark and he's telling her, someone bit me, I'm thinking, are you in on this? Is this part of the trap, you know? But then to also address one thing you were criticizing, I really, really appreciated the fact that the way AJ was moving through the whole environment down beneath the level of his house was so incredibly tonally different from that of everything that had preceded, because I don't have a lot of suspense built up around that space. I've seen people be in it, or I've seen one person in it and then another person the same person wait on another person going in there. And I was like, okay, so let's not revisit like the same beats we've already been through. I like the fact that also it was more, because I was wondering, who is AJ and what are they going to do with him from a writing standpoint and from like a filmmaking standpoint? Am I supposed to, is his arc going to be a redemption, or is it going to be like, good, he's dead, or what is it going to be? And I love that it kept me guessing there. And even the fact that it's not so much an investigation that he's conducting of the bowels of his home, of potential wrongdoing. It's an investigation of like listing embellishments he can make. Yeah. Like, no, but now I know I can like, you know, say it's a much larger property than it really is.
I can appreciate the humor of it, and just the fact that it, you know, it does feel different. I mean, to piggyback off of another movie that we talked about, Happy Death Day, where we are seeing the same scene of Tree waking up every day, but there's nuance to every single time she wakes up that it's different. I do appreciate that. I think that the problem really from me, because yes, it is like so tonally different, but the fact that he doesn't know anything either, and it makes me as an audience member feel like our journey with this character isn't going to get us anywhere new in this movie. And I don't think that we ever do with like, because we get the flashback, which comes after he falls into the pit or whatever. And Tess reemerges and is like, shh. And then we see that stuff. But I mean, like, none of that came about because of the character of AJ. It just came about more just like sort of in a very like synthetic storytelling way. It's just like, now we're going to segue into this 1980s flashback here. So I just think that like everything involving AJ, while it might have like tonally, yes, it's different, and it made it feel unique in the same environment. But I just think the fact that he was still, regardless of how he was reacting to it, he was still in the exact same position as Tess was at the beginning. So it's not like it's almost like we're getting a new. This is going to be very obscure because I don't know if we talked about it in the Scream episodes. Here I am just going back to other movies that I like better than this. But in Scream, I think like when you and I both talked about the first time we saw Scream and how after the opening scene with Casey Becker, it cuts to Sydney and she's, at home doing homework on her computer. And your first thought, which was also my first thought, is like, is this what this movie is? Kind of like an anthology of different characters coming in and being killed by the killer. And it's like each time there's like new information that we learn, and it kind of like gets to a point where like by the end, the last person introduced is going to be the one that defeats it. Obviously, that's not what Scream became, but just for the sake of like me trying to explain it to you and for everyone else listening, that's kind of what I was getting a sense from in this movie of Barbarian, of just like, we've gone through Tess, we've seen her journey through this environment. Now we're going to see AJ go through the same thing. And while his, obviously, like how he relates to everything else around him and in his life is different tonally, he's still like, we're not getting any new information about what the creature is downstairs, how much he knows about it. And that's what made this feel very stagnant to me for a long time. And it wasn't until, like I said, that we do get the flashback that we're not seeing a character's flashback. The story is just like, now we're going to go into the past and show us these characters had no idea about this. It wasn't like somebody was like, let me tell you about this, or like they found information that showed them, oh, this has been going on for some time. That's my complaint with the homeless guy, because he gives his vague description of what's going on. But it's just like it felt so contrived.
Okay, I mean, for me, I was on the ride. Like, the suspense was palpable for me once he actually did, because I believe this happens prior to the flashback. Doesn't he see what I'll refer to heretofore as the nursing room before he falls down that hole, and before we see Tess clasp her hands over him and tell him to calm the fuck down or whatever, and then he's like, where are we, or whatever he says, and then we find out.
I don't even think we get that. I think we just get her like
I thought he saw the room before he fell.
No, he saw the room, but I mean that is just like very little. Like,
but I see, it wasn't little to me. It just broadened where the fuck are we? Okay, so is this something like somebody was trafficking humans, or at least imprisoning them here, and now we're watching this like maternal video in this weird pink room that's kind of got this like, cushy bedspreads on the floor. Weird, I don't know, just like I still couldn't quite put the pieces together at exactly what I was looking at and exactly who the woman who attacked in right before the blackout at the end of Act 1, where she was. I had theories, but I kept waiting for more. And then once the flashback, so by the time we got to the flashback, I was more afraid than I had been the entire movie, because something about piggybacking on this sick motherfucker, Frank, played by our own Richard Brake, who I forever I couldn't remember his name while I was watching. I was like, oh my god, it's Joe Chill. He'll always be Joe Chill to me from the Chris Nolan Batman movies, but also in the Rob Zombie movies. He's in like every one of them. He's the guy who in Halloween 2 is in the ambulance going, oh yeah,
he did look familiar.
Yeah, that's him. Good actor. He's the best thing about, was it 31?
Never seen.
Was that Rob Zombie's? Okay.
The only Rob Zombie movies I've seen are Halloween and Halloween 2.
Okay. No, I mean, I don't think 31, if that's the title. I hope I'm remembering it correctly. But anyway, right. Yeah. If I saw the movie, I'm not a big fan of the movie, but I do have to say Joe Chill, Richard Brake, Frank, has an astonishing monologue that he does directly down the barrel of the camera in black and white. It's chilling. It is so... He should have won an Oscar for it, but Oscars don't mean shit, fuck that. Yeah, right. But anyway, should have won something. He won my respect as an actor from that. But anyway, we're in the backstory, and the fact that he is so good at being, again, kind of like in a Bill Skarsgård way of like walking this creepy yet... I don't know about normal, but, just like man man on the street kind of vibe.
Man
like,
about town,
Like,
just
maybe closer because we know what a fuck he is.
shopping for plastic sheets. And I love that. I do love that bit where first he's like plastic sheets, and then it's just like the home birth thing comes up. She's like, oh yeah, that explains the plastic sheets. Just like these people like putting it together of just like making up excuses. Like, yeah, that's not suspicious at all.
Also, it was an interesting design choice to me because I could have sworn we had gone back into the 1950s, but we were back. But we hear over the radio that it's like a Reagan era.
Yeah, it's like I believe it's like early 80s.
Yeah.
Well, because you even heard the song. It was the heat of the moment.
Yeah,
was that playing?
Something like that, sure. Yeah. But I knew for sure we were in the 80s. But the aesthetic was like kind of like decidedly.
It's a very like, mid-century looking home and like the neighborhood in general. And I think that was kind of like
of the pastels of Edward Scissorhands' neighborhood kind of thing, down the hill, just on the streets.
Because I mean, like, I don't know a lot about Detroit or the city's history or anything, but they've definitely used settings like that, like Don't Breathe, of just like the abandoned neighborhood where nobody lives. So I imagine that it was probably like very thriving in the 50s of just these mid-century homes and it seemed like what was established in the movie, or at least towards the end of the flashback, is that everyone in the neighborhood was getting out, and Frank was like, I'm not leaving.
And again, that's like a slight criticism I have for it, because to me, that neighborhood looked bright, colorful, and clean, like it was thriving. Yeah. So to hear his neighbors say, this neighborhood's going to hell, I'm like, I guess I'll just have to take your word for it, because it doesn't look like it to me. But okay. So again, minor complaints from me, because then, because that was terrifying, like just kind of like riding along with him, feeling like his conscience. Oh God, it was terrible. And then the fact that we go back into the pit, and I gotta say, a baby bottle never looked so terrifying to me, because all of a sudden I kind of got, okay, I know who you are and where we are and what you think they are, and good for you that we get to like jump on with Tess and catch her when she's already caught up, and I'm just and now she has to catch someone else up, oh my gosh, what an unlikely pair.
That's what I didn't like. I didn't like getting to her and then just her just being like, oh, this is what you got to do. Like I said, that was the movie I wanted to see her survival story. I didn't want to see his how did I get into this jam story. And that bottle was disgusting though, because I mean it had like strands of hair on the little like suction thing. I don't even want to know where that I'm just getting visions of her getting the whatever system they used to get the breast milk and then put it in the bottle, and then for Tess to be like drinking that just to the lengths you will go to for survival.
Just to not make things worse. I understand completely. But again, I would have been like, okay, you seem to have your head on your shoulders. I'll do whatever you say. And you can answer my questions as soon as you tell me it's safe. You've been here. You know better than I do what to do. So the fact that he still was just going like, what the fuck? I'm like, shut up, you dumb shit. But I don't know. It wasn't in a way that like we were just like we discussed with M. Thregan. People making bad mistakes, and bad decisions. But it never turned me off. With this movie, I was turned off, like in a way where it turned my stomach. But I was never turned off. Like, I don't like this movie anymore. Like I was definitely on the right, because then I didn't take notes for like a long time, because I was just so engrossed in what I was watching. And again, the suspense never stopped for me. Everything about like with the tape measure, all the way leading AJ down that hole, and then when they're both trying to get out, and then she just full on like walks out, and I'm like, go girl, just keep running. You can do what I thought you should have done in the first place with Bill Skarsgård and go find some kind of external help. Only then, when you seek it externally, will you realize how fruitless that pursuit is, but you gotta start somewhere. And I don't believe starting somewhere means going back to the heart of the matter and, going into the bowels of the house alone until you're the only person you can count on. Like that was another thing. I enjoyed the twist because I thought the woman was kind of like just, stuck in the house. And then when Andre came back on the scene and we realized he's, a good 'un, and he tells her, she comes out at night. I was like, fuck that shit. So you do need to run. You do need to get as far away from all of this shit. And then there was just so much going on between like the cops not believing her and the reasons they seemed to use to justify them not believing her, as if they probably needed any, I guess, because they're the ones who are in power. And they're also, I understand, again, like everybody they seem to be pulled in every kind of like direction. And if on the face of it, they see her as just some kind of like junkie who's flipping out, who needs to calm down, and they've got a real, disaster somewhere that they can actually do something about, I guess. That was interesting. Also, it was at that point that I started realizing, I counted, because things started to turn, but it was around the 85th minute, the only time I checked the time of this movie, that I just said, everyone who made it to the 85th minute thus far, because some people died very shortly thereafter, experiences being some sort of barbarian or feeling like some sort of barbarian. So immediately it just compelled me with the title, because I know you described the mother character as how she is billed, as the monster of the movie. But once we get the flashback, we realize like, oh, she's not the monster. I mean, she's the monster much in the same way that Frankenstein's monster is a monster. It's not his fault that he was brought into the world, back into the world the way he was. She's very confused. She never had things normalized for her. She's got this incredible incest strength. I don't understand.
Well,
inbred
my
superpowers.
Take on the title is that the Barbarian is actually Justin Long. But I mean, and Frank, and I mean, you could apply it to like any number of behaviors that we see in characters within this movie. I just like to apply it to Justin Long because I'm just like, fuck
of course,
that guy.
Totally,
yeah,
totally. But I mean, I think when it felt like that for me with Tess was the moment when I can't even remember exactly. Was this the first moment she was going to leave? Was she going to leave Keith behind, or was she going to leave AJ behind? She was going to leave one of them behind, and she had a moment where she like looked down the tunnel and then looked up at like her exit because she had one. Oh, I guess it was maybe, I don't remember which one it was, but she had to make a choice.
This movie that you just watched that was so
there was so
compelling.
much. Like, okay, you remember everything about shit you just watched.
It was the second encounter, so it was like the stuff with AJ, because she got in her car, and that's when Mother came out of the house,
right.
And
right.
No, actually, that was because she escaped through the window because she broke it, and that's where Andre pulled her out, and that's the when we sort of see Mother like and then disappear into the darkness behind the window. I thought that was funny, like in a not intentional funny way, just like how they filmed that, because I did like the style used in a lot of that. But yeah, she goes back to the house, and that's when there's the whole bit where she runs the car into the
mother.
The mother.
The house, and the mother. But the thing is, that was another example for me of just like, you must have felt at least barbaric, because here, this person you've just killed is now, aggressively still kind of like flailing and trying to get at you, but also slowly, quote unquote, dying. That's what she thought was happening. Yeah. And to lock eyes with someone you have hit with your car, regardless of what they have done to you, if they lock eyes with you as they are slipping away, it seems, I defy anybody who's endowed with any measure of compassion not to feel something, like, it's unfortunate it had to be this way. I don't think I would be a person. I think I'd be a lot like Tess, where I'd just be kind of like locked in there and, in the gaze of this person and just wondering, how did we get here? How did you get here? Why did I have to kill you to defend myself? I don't know. It just brought up all of these incredible questions. And then, oh God, no good deed goes unpunished, because, okay, Andre.
Well, you're skipping over the part where she does go.
Go for it then. I'm not going in any sequence. Go for it.
Well, no, because after that she goes back into the basement to rescue Justin Long, but at that point he's gone on his own little adventure and he's come across the Frank, who's still alive and I guess wanting the handgun so he can end his misery. And we see like the collection of the videos, and it's where he watches it. What does he say? He's like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" Or something like that. So it's almost like holding a mirror up to. I mean, I don't know what went on with the Justin Long character and this Megan. It was the actress's name, but I'm sure it didn't involve murder or incest or anything. But it was almost like if you mention like a redemption arc for this character, which I don't like. There's no redemption, or at least it's almost like a tease of redemption. But it's a question mark in that moment. It's just like, again, it kind of there's no self-awareness for him, and that's why we get to the part later on where he does what he does. But it's almost like we're building up this backstory, and then we just got to take care of it. We just got to like quickly wrap things up with the old man. And it just felt like this movie, the entire, like after the first act was all sensationalism for me. It was just like, how can we be as extreme as possible and just like shock the audience? And nothing ever really shocked me. And I think that's why this didn't work for me. Like I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. And like I just found it to be such a average, like taking the brilliance of like the beginning and then like everything else and like mixing it together, it just kind of like lands in the middle for me. So I think that if there was more structure to the story and like the characters and how they related to the story, I probably would have had a much better, like I would have seen it through the lenses that you're seeing it through. But just like the convenience of like taking care of all these loose ends that was like the stuff with Frank. And then it made me angry that she goes back down there to rescue him and she gets shot for it. That, and not even in like a good way, like, this movie is so off the hook, like I can't believe they did that. Just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like it that upset me, and it just felt like it didn't raise the stakes anymore, because like the stakes of the movie were already like at their pinnacle by that point anyway. So it just felt like here's more complications that we have to deal with, and they weren't necessary. Like I said, it was all sensationalism. It didn't feel like it's going to add anything to the story. Because I don't like where you think that like there was a purpose to his character and there was an arc. Like I don't see anything of him.
No, I didn't say that.
Sorry, I'm misremembering. What were your words exactly?
I was speculating the whole movie. Yeah. Is there going to be an arc? Is it going to be an arc of redemption? Is he going to just turn out to be absolute trash and whatever? Like, I mean, that's what kept me interested in AJ's character, was just the question mark over my head about the course he was going to take. Because clearly he had committed an act that we are not supposed to just kind of like forgive at face value and go like, oh my gosh, he feels bad. Okay, like that's not what that phone call, achieved for me, but it did let me see, okay, so you can experience some remorse and you're doing everything that the people in your legal team have warned you against, but you're doing it. It seems like with the best of intentions, yet you are also probably thinking about what's going to make you feel better and not about what makes her feel better, because it's a drunken call in the middle of the night. It's the ambiguity I found a lot of. Yeah,
I understand what you're saying. I guess that question of like, what is this? What direction is it going in with his character? It was never compelling to me. Like I was never like fully invested or interested in. And then the payoff for where it eventually went was it felt like a bit of a whimper by the end of the movie. If anything, like I wish that they had been more decisive with his character and been a lot more brute. I mean, like he has a pretty gross death. But I just like, I would have wanted, that's a case where I would have appreciated overkill. I would have liked to see even more than we actually get. That I just felt like by the end, I seriously, like, when the credits started to roll, I'm like, is that it? Like, I was expecting more emotionally, because I just don't feel that you know me, like, I will glom onto a specific character, and in this case it was Tess, and you know, it was Keith before he got killed, but it was just like with her, and I just never felt that she got the catharsis of like having to go through all that. Like, she went through so much shit, and she was never validated for, you know, like what she knew, what she had reported, what she had gone through, that it's just like leaving her at the end there, it didn't feel like a victory. It just felt like, you're gonna hate this, you're gonna hate me saying this, but it just felt like a huge inconvenience, because like you said earlier, my thought was like, what about that job? You know, like, I wasn't thinking about like this harrowing experience she went through. I was just like, so does she still get to work at that job? Because it just, the whole thing felt like an inconvenience rather than like,
oh my god,
yeah,
okay.
I mean, a really bad one where she was like stuck down there, because we didn't even. But that's the thing. Like, the movie would have benefited if we had stayed with her character. Like, that disconnect that was created by leaving her, it ruined the flow for me.
You made me throw my head back so bad I almost unplugged myself.
Did you? You did like the seagull thing, yeah.
Okay, I have to say, okay, there's a lot to address here because we're moving toward the end, but I just want to address, just in terms of like the Frank thing, and you discussing him. One thing that I liked about going in that direction and about his elimination is that it felt very real to me. Not, oh God, it must have been within this past week. I read about some asshole out in the Midwest who had been running a theater company for children and for the community and everything like that. And all of a sudden, enough people had come forward, young men had come forward, talking about sexual abuse. And they were and they brought it to the attention of the company and to the authorities, and they were going to take next steps, you know, determining what they were going to do. They made it clear to this man they were going to go to his house and they were going to discuss it, and they were going to figure out what was going to be the next step. And when they went to go to his home to discuss it, they found that he had killed himself. And I've heard about this happening a lot with sex abusers, when the impending consequences of their actions are awaiting them, they'll just shut down. They will do what they do for as long as they are allowed, or as long as they can outrace being caught. And then once it's clear, once the writing is on the wall, they have no future, they have no life. Well, I had a good run, you know. So something about that, because that was another thing, it wasn't so predictable that I knew he was looking for a gun. I didn't know he was looking for a gun to kill himself. I was right up to the point where he was like kind of, it seemed like the filmmakers
it could have gone either way.
Wanted us to keep deciding, because he could have shot him because he doesn't want any cops down here and he's got a nice cushy life. But, you know, how much longer is he gonna, well, I mean, as far as he's concerned, like, I mean, compared to prison where he has to be on the receiving end of the sexual abuse, it's pretty nice and cushy. So, anyway.
Oh, he would have been like put in a bed. Like there like there's no.
It would have been terrible.
No,
that's a horror movie in and of itself, is the consequences of his actions.
No, but I mean like he is so old and like he couldn't walk, he couldn't do anything. Like he wouldn't be,
I don't know.
He would be like confined to like the hospital ward of a prison or something. They would just be waiting for him to die.
We don't know that.
Well, if he can't walk around, if he can't move, they're not gonna put him in like.
We'll just leave him in the cell.
I mean, I feel like I've watched enough prison shows in my time to know what like the protocol is, but I mean,
to know what they would do in Brightmoor. But anyway, whatever. He decided to take himself out. It felt authentic to someone who would make those decisions. If anything can feel authentic in this movie at that point. But that was another thing I enjoyed. Like, it had gone into such a strange, wild cornucopia of you know, it was like oversaturated with themes and with confrontations and with characters who, you know, have this strange trajectory, for lack of a better word, And to the point where I literally couldn't tell where it was taking me next in a way that I found as a moviegoer I enjoyed a great deal. I didn't feel like they just like stripped him out because they didn't know what to do with him. It felt like something that character would do once he knew like everything that he's done is going to be exposed. You know, like people are going to know who he is. People are going to know, you know, they may think he's long dead or something, and now they'll find a way to make him pay for something. Anyway, so there's that. But then we're talking about, okay, so AJ shooting Tess. The only reason I think it's kind of vital to where the movie goes from here is because he hasn't really been responsible for anything that's hurt her yet, directly. So putting that on him gives us, when they go outside of the house, and she knows where Andre is, because he done told her. So they're like walking down the street, going to where Andre is. He's there waiting to lift the gate for them and everything like that, like some kind of strange good Samaritan, like this mysterious man who materializes and like, I'll protect you. And so they go in and everything, and they're talking about he and I love seeing, again, like for Justin Long's performance, but also just for the character of AJ, to see him absolutely consumed. We've seen a man who has like completely outrun any kind of like accountability, except for like that phone call with Megan where he let it in just a little bit, but he was also drunk and it was the middle of the night. But now he's as sober as we could, you know, imagine him being. And he's doing this wonderful double talk that they wrote for him where he's talking about, I hurt her and I'm responsible for that. So I need to, you know, and I can't change it. I can't change what I did. All I can do at this point is fix it. And there's this determination in him. And I'm not saying it redeems him for me, but I'm like, okay, good. This is a good color to see on you. And I love that it takes absolutely no time. Because I started wondering, is this going to be a redemption arc again for this character? Is this good? Okay, is he going to survive? And I'm going to be like, okay, now you have to keep fighting the fight, and you have to keep atoning for shit you did. And maybe you know that now. But I love that. Oh, I don't love that poor Andre, because of his his kindly invitation of them into his place, where apparently the mother has never crossed the boundaries before. She chooses tonight to be the night.
That to me was like the moment in The Black Phone where the brother comes downstairs and like the door is like ajar, and he's just like, I knew something was going on here. Yeah, and it's just like, you're open the door more. There's a killer behind you. Like, it's just like. That was just in terms of like the setup for that I feel was unsuccessful. Unless they were trying to go for satire, it just did not work for me.
I just for the adrenaline alone, it worked for me. I mean, I knew it was coming because the second you say something like that, it's the equivalent of just at random in Freddy's
rules,
Revenge.
You know, don't say, I'll be right back.
I always think about the end of Freddy's Revenge where everybody thinks everything's okay and Jesse's getting a little weirded out, and then the girl just like hunches over the chair and says, it's okay, Jesse. It's all over. And then a hand comes out of her fucking chest. I mean, I don't know. I kind of lived for it in this movie. Because again, like I knew he's talking like that. I'm like, well, she's coming through. There she is. Oh, God. And then, because this is the thing. What followed was AJ nearly abandoning this woman he has shot, who he's just pledged to fix it. And now he's leaving her behind and be like, come on, run, keep up. And I'm like, you are a shit. Okay, I like this movie because what it does is it endows that character with enough dimension to feel remorse, but when the chips are down, he's all talk. It's one thing to sit there and talk about, you know, your shame and your responsibility and pledge to do something about it. It's another thing when the shit hits the fan and you need to prove who you are with your actions, and you do just that. You prove exactly who the fuck you are, you fucking coward, because that's not even the worst thing he does. He outruns her and then can't even get a hold of the gun. He drops it. And then as he's like breaking things down, decides like, okay, well, only one of us can get away. I can outrun her. So, but, you know, we got to slow her down. I'll grab you by the hair and just slide you off this fucking roof.
He just like, there was a lot of justification for his shitty
self-justification. Yeah.
Of just like it's all right. This is what I have to do, and it's for the greater good. And
Right.
even going back to like the drunken voicemail, because like that entire thing was more of just like, and like you already alluded to this, just like I feel bad. You know, I don't necessarily feel bad for what happened to you. I just feel bad because I got in trouble for it. And that's the thing. It's just like this. Yes, this character has so much dimension, but there is all that dimension is there, and that's why nothing that happened with him shocked me, because it seems, I know that you were kind of like, where's this going? But it's just like I knew who it was. I knew that I just didn't care about his story. I wanted to get back with Tessa's story. So I mean, in terms of like all that
there.
What's that?
I was not rooting for him.
I get that. This is not a character you can root for, but it's just like it frustrated me that he was given as much agency in this movie as he had, because I did not want to see his story. I didn't like we saw it for like I was kind of interested in it for like the first 5-10 minutes, like I said, and after that I'm just like, let's get back to Tess. I that's who I want. So all that stuff. I think that I've already spoken to like all the things that I liked and all the things I didn't like. So I'm just gonna keep like going around in circles of just like what annoyed me. Because even like all the stuff with Andre, when he is just like, when you make a copy of a copy of a copy and all that, I'm just like, okay, let's explain. Now like we're just like now we're just gonna quickly explain that this is like an incest thing. Like it just, which doesn't make any sense, but let's just do it. Whatever, it is what it is. But I mean,
Wrong Turn did it. Didn't they do that in Wrong Turn? And that's what made them so strong, was the fact that they were inbred. But the thing
that I mean, and I shouldn't speak to Wrong Turn too much because I haven't seen it in a while. I'm sure we'll cover it soon. Okay. But I just feel like with that, there's so much, if memory serves, like camp value to it. Where I feel like, not that there's nothing campy in this, but it definitely feels intentional. Whereas like Wrong Turn, I think, is just campy because it is what it is. So again, I need to watch Wrong Turn because I haven't seen it in a while. But with this, it's intentional, like where they were going with the story, and I'm always gonna go back to the beginning, and just like the movie that was teased for us was never as good as where it started out. And that's kind of like the bottom line for me.
See, the bottom line for me came to right before the end, when it's after they slid off the roof, the mother and Tess, and there's, AJ quivering, beholding what he did, feeling bad again. And he goes down the steps and he investigates, like, oh no, oh, I feel so bad, I'm gonna grab the gun, but
making more excuses for himself, and she's not even saying anything. She's obviously annoyed, but
because also he thought she was dead first, so it's almost like he's visiting the burial site, and then when she just kind of comes through, it's like, oh, and he does exactly what you just spelled out. Was he again starts reassuring himself of just like, oh well, okay, but this is what I meant to do. Like I knew that I had to do it, and I was just thinking, but now you're alive, and I'm going to get you help now. I can be the person. There's still time for me to be a good part. Like he's making a case, and I was just kind of like, okay, he better die, because as he was walking up, and I thought they might both be dead. I thought both Mother and Tess might be dead. I was like, okay, is this the movie? Is it like there is no justice in this world, and the shittiest, well, not the shittiest guy, I mean, that's still up for debate, but one of the shittiest guys to be on screen this whole movie is going to get to walk away, and right back into his scandals. I was thinking all of this while I was like, well, I hope she does nail you now. I hope you lose everything now, but because you don't deserve to live, sir. And maybe that's what this movie is. Maybe this is just a mean-spirited, dark-ass movie. But then when she came to life, I was just kind of like, okay, he's dead. He has to.
Yeah.
And when he did, I appreciated that. I could have gone... I mean, I wasn't craving it the way I am with some other people. The gore of the death and the relishing, the justice that's being done or anything. It was just kind of like, get rid of him. And then I thought that the most compelling thing was still this connection that the mother felt, this affinity for Tess as her baby. Because I also just thought, like, there's a lot of prosthetics going on this performer, Matt Davis, who I actually met through a friend of mine. I think he went to college with my bestie, and I got to meet him just like randomly on the street one day. And I remember he was like very tall, like 7. He's very tall, very lanky still. But I just remember my bestie laughing at me because she couldn't, I don't know, she likes seeing me scared or sad or hurt, like injured physically. I've hurt myself in front of her and she's pointed and laughed, so that's why she's my bestie. But she saw me standing next to Matt and she just started laughing hysterically. We were both like, what's going on? What's wrong? She's like, you have never looked shorter, pointing at me. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And he looked uncomfortable. I was just like, she's just being her, don't mind her. Anyway, have a good day, bye. Good performer. Anyway, just a little backstory because I like to bring up when I know people or have met people. I don't really know him. But anyway, the performance he's giving through all these prosthetics, and this connection, he's just kind of going, bah, 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 bah. It was heartbreaking. I wasn't crying or anything, but I was definitely feeling sad for this poor woman who only knew what she was exposed to, namely that video and that fucking Frank. And to the point where she didn't fear anything, it seemed, except him. Like the way she kind of shrunk away from the entryway when AJ was going towards Frank's room and she knew he was. The way she started to move in and then kind of like disappear. Once I knew what was going on there, I was like, oh my gosh, that breaks my heart. So to see her connecting with Tess and Tess still having to, once again, kill her... Because at that point, it's you or me. Either I'm going to spend the rest of my life living down in that fucking nursing room with you trying to feed me and being creeped out by you.
Maybe there could have been like a Texas Chainsaw 3D ending. Where she takes the mother back to
I doubt
to
it.
house,
I was crying in the end of
mother
Texas
the
Chainsaw 3D, not this movie. I would cry at the end of for
I think that
like
what I don't like. Because you know how I'm like a huge a champion of like the final girl. Like I want my final girls to be, you know, the badass, like fight back and take control of their story. And in that moment that you're discussing of like AJ going back down there and being, and, you know, making more excuses and her just being like, she's just kind of like, oh, like, like I just fell. I wanted her to fucking like, you know, be like, you fucking prick, or just, you know, like say something, just, you know, just say something about what had happened. And it's almost like she succeeds because it's the movie's not really about her triumph. It's more about his failure, his shortcomings. And that left the movie like as a final note for me to watch it as just like, this is not, it doesn't kindle empowerment. Like I'm not getting like strong emotions from anything that's happening here. And just in terms of like the killing of the mother that she does, it's just like, yes, that's a very practical thing that you can be doing here right now. But again, it's just like, I felt so emotionally taken out of it because it's like now all of a sudden the movie's trying to build this sympathy for the monster, like the that's living in the basement, and I'm just like, at this point I don't care. I just wanted to. I didn't want it to end because obviously I felt left unsatisfied, but I felt like there was a hole, you know, just like an emotional void from everything that happened that it just didn't connect.
Okay, yeah. and I didn't feel that. I there was something about like, since we're bringing up other movies and shit, like something akin to like a Scream 3 where Sydney doesn't, you know, like she needs to kill. Spoilers for Scream 3, everybody. If you don't want to hear this, skip ahead 45 seconds. Everybody's watched Scream who's watching this, but anyway. Akin to like when Sid kills off, I'm going to call him Roman, to... you know, she does it because she has to, but there's still this connection that she feels for him because this is her blood, this is her brother, and he never had any kind of like family that he's referenced, reach out for him and be there for him. So if she can do one thing for him in his final moments, she can be there for him. It's kind of on the same, it's kind of, not, I don't know about on par, but it's kind of in the same headspace for me, or heart space.
And I didn't,
okay.
Yeah, I didn't get that from her.
Yeah.
I saw it on Mother's End of,
but I mean, if she felt absolutely nothing for her, I feel like she would have just shot her and it would have been, called it a day. It would have been a much less, like, again, that lingering look when she's on the windshield, something passed between the two of them that, was just like unfortunate, and tragic almost. And now I have to kill you again because it's the only way to keep myself from getting dragged back down into that fucking hellscape. So I'm gonna, and you know what? Maybe she was having her own inner monologue about like, you know what? Maybe this is going to be better for you because there's no way you're going to acclimate to the outside world now. I mean, if you can destroy,
you are digging so deep. I love it.
That's what I do. I'm king of headcanon or queen, whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact that like that, that it seemed to be like a mercy kill, very of mice and men, very and then I love just kind of like the fact that it ended and they started playing "Be My Baby" fucked me up. I was like, I'm never gonna hear this song the same way again. God damn it! I used to think about Dirty Dancing when I heard "Be My Baby." Now I'm gonna think about Matt Davis and his fucking prosthetics. Ugh. What a horrible, horrible future.
Well, if we can, before we get to the cherry picker, just finish things off, to reel it in more positively. I do appreciate the fact that this movie it doesn't follow the typical structure of what a movie should, and I love the kind of the grassroots of it all, the filmmaking, if you will, of just kind of going out there and doing it yourself. And because I didn't follow, this movie is not available on physical media, which I think is criminal actually, because of just how Disney is doing everything with their releases these days. Like, this absolutely should have a physical release, and I would have been very interested to see like special features and listen to the director's commentary about things. So I do really respect the fact that this is it's kind of marches to the beat of its own drum, because I do think that more movies should do that. People complain that there's no original ideas in Hollywood, yada yada yada. Right. Here's an original idea. I just think that the caveat here is just because an idea is original doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. That's the only thing I'll say to my opinion of it. Okay. But it just in terms of the strengths of this movie, like technically and for the acting and even the effects and all that, like it's an A+. I'm so I turned off of like some of these screenplays that we've been getting lately. Like I just see so many pivots to, the left when it's like, I think this would have been better if you went to the right. So my opinion, I know a lot of people love this. A lot of people got really angry at me when I put this mid-tier of things that I saw in 2022. But I mean, I'm just owning my opinion. I'm not gonna lie and blow smoke up anyone's ass and just be like, this was a great movie. No,
that's not what this is about.
I just feel like there's only so many times I can watch this and get enjoyment, and I even felt like I said, rewatching it, I didn't get the same intensity of that first act on my second viewing that I did the first time I saw it, because I already knew how to use a word that you use a lot, immaterial it was for the entire thing. So it's okay, cool. 3 stars. 3 stars.
Okay, I don't do the fucking rating thing, but unless I'm like backs against the wall. But I will say, being introduced to Anna, or I thought I was being introduced to her. I'm looking at her credits right now. Anna Drubich or Drubick. Who's the composer. Looking forward to more scores from her. Apparently she scored part 1 and part 3 of Fear Street, which were the chapters that I enjoyed the most.
I thought that was Marco Beltrami.
She's credited here as composer. Okay. So you tell me. And then here, there's some other stuff. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else. Scary stories to tell in the dark. Nice. So yeah, I like what I've gotten so far. I want more. And also from the filmmaker, because he did direct and write it. Zack Cregger. Not a lot to speak of outside of like a lot of television. I think he did like a rom-com back in 2009 or something that I probably won't be seeing. But but I look forward to. I'm glad he achieved as much success together with his team as and his cast as he did with this movie, because it achieved enough of what it was reaching for that I'm compelled to see more. I want to see what is next. What next story are you going to be? Compelled to tell. I'm just compel. That's fair. The word of the
and
night.
Also, just in terms of like what, because we talk about the horror renaissance, and you know, even if like this is not something that I think is spectacular, it still is very like highly scored and rated by critics and fans alike. That even if I didn't see the same movie that you did, I appreciate the fact that this is part of this like this horror resurgence where the genre is getting more attention. Like, people are saying that we as fans are serious, the people who make these movies are serious, and that these movies are better. And that's what I'll say. I mean, like, I'm not like a huge fan of Barbarian, but I'd still prefer to watch it over probably like 80% of the other shit that's out there right now. So I'm glad that
big swings.
Absolutely.
Swings.
And this we were even talking about like Rotten Tomato scores for like Megan, and I looked at this one. I'll have to bring it up again. But it was like also very, very well received. 92%. So just a little less than Megan.
For horror, that is high.
Yeah, and 71% for audience score. So Rotten Tomatoes is such a wonky system. Like, I don't know where the line is for like what's good and what's bad. I would still say this is a good movie. This is a good horror movie. So I would definitely be on the plus side. Like, it's a thumbs up. I wouldn't even like a thumbs, like a hesitant thumbs up. So
I also enjoy so many designated rotten films, and there were so many fresh films where I'm just kind of like, really, whatever.
I also kind of like the because it's not really that, like, it's more of an understated thing with this, but kind of like the allusions to Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs. Of just like the idea of that, and like incest and the children locked in the walls and the bowels of the house. I like that movie a lot more, but
or you brought up Don't Breathe. It makes me think like Detroit's probably going to get sick of being depicted as a place that's full of rundown houses where women are being held captive. Spoiler for Don't Breathe, but like I'm wondering if like the city of Detroit is going to have to the mayor is going to have to make some kind of proclamation. Please stop depicting us as a headquarters for kidnappers and sexual abusers. Madonna's film has been shelved, so we don't have that to look forward to
now you're getting way too niche. I don't understand. All right,
that's actually very mainstream, but anyway. All right, you want to pick some cherries?
Let's pick them.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
Okay, first we got to pick a cherry on top, and honestly, I could go one of two ways. I could say Tess, but I really think that it should be Keith, because this is kind of like I'm also taking Bill Skarsgård into consideration here, because I just think that everything that he's doing with this very minimal role is so excellent. And as much as I do love Tess, as I mentioned, like just the issues I have with not her character, but the writing about it. But I just I really like Keith's presence or lack thereof was felt for me. Like after he left the movie, I was just like, why? Like more of him. Why do we got this shit going on now? So I would say either one. I'm leaning more towards Keith.
Okay. Because I can definitely understand the accolades for Mr. Skarsgård, especially because I felt it too. I loved the tightrope walk of it all in that first act and everything like that. I concur with pretty much everything you said, except and I also want to bring it up. He was a producer on this, so good for him. But
get that producer credit.
The only thing that would keep him from being a cherry on top for me would be the horrible decision to not just investigate the room when he found it and saw it and confirmed and everything like that, and then to disappear behind a door on your own without giving the person who's waiting for you any kind of like insight into as to like what it is you're doing, because you're a man and you can handle, I assume, I have no idea what possessed him to go down there, and then to be so freaked out by a bite he got from one direction that he is absolutely frozen in the spot and cannot move in that direction again, even though it's the only known exit from this space. And you're not only endangering yourself, now you're endangering our leading lady. So I would lean more toward Tess, because even the mistakes she makes, at least there's a path of weighing pros and cons before she makes a mistake. And a lot of her mistakes are known like in retrospect, like, oh, now I know not to trust AJ now that I've fallen off the fucking water tower, you know?
Well, I think that just in terms of like what you're saying about like, you're just kind of making shit up of like, oh, well, because he's a man and he's, you know, doesn't need to respond to her.
I think that I have no idea why.
Why you even make that headcanon, I don't know. But it's, to me, that's just more like screenwriting contrivances, but it is sort of alluded to because like when they bump into each other after he's been bitten, he's just kind of like, shh, like do not, like he's at least already has the intel to know you can't react, like you have to be very calm, and she's up there like yelling for him. So, you know, in his situation, it might just be a thing of just like, I want to call to you and tell you not to come down here, but if I yell that loud enough for you to hear me,
too late.
Yeah, for him. Like,
I understand what you're saying. I just think it's too late, because like you should have told her you were going through another door. Like, wait, there's another door. Did you go through this? Like, keep the conversation going. But if we want to put him in the cherry on top, I won't argue. Like, fine, sure, why not?
Yeah, we don't need to argue about it, but yeah, we'll put him there.
Okay.
Because as far as the cherry picker goes, from last week, where we asked you who deserves to die the most in Dawn of the Dead, 1978. I nominated Motor Raider.
Which, as interpreted by Tom Savini.
Yeah, I think we decided like the Tom Savini one. They were all called Motor Raider. Right. And you chose Wooly, the racist SWAT
cop
officer. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, we had a total of 229 for Motor Raider versus 370 for Wooly. So you at least get your first pick in terms of this movie for the cherry picker. But I just want to read some comments just to see what the listeners / viewers are saying.
What makes you tick?
Yeah, Sky the Doll. I don't know. Seeing Tom Savini get absolutely gutted is a treat. Love the podcast.
That's hilarious.
And we love you too. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thomas Baker. Vote goes to Officer Wooly.
Thank you.
Steve Okanivo. Isn't his name Sex Machine Gun? LOL, loved him. I think his name was Sex Machine in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Right.
That was the...
Yeah.
Maybe that's the Dawn, From Dusk Till Dawn of the Dead.
Oh my gosh, that would be a great mashup, From Dusk Till Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
I want to see that comic. Anyway, somebody draw it for me.
Sucked, says Officer Woolley for sure. The only good/bad thing about him is that his appearance in Dawn of the Dead is still relevant today. Nice mustache, though. Nice. Movie Maniac 03. Haven't seen this in a few years. I don't really remember the characters, but I know that's Tom Savini. Love that guy. The other guy, don't know him, so I don't love that guy.
Great.
Grant Dempsey, Officer Woolley for sure. That piece of shit's rampage is the scariest scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And Craig says, my fave film ever, but Woolley, OMG, what an a-hole. I think a zombie lunch would have been a better ending for him. He was an a-hole.
He was.
And then finally, Silent Saturn says, Officer Woolley, partly because he's POS who deserved everything he got, and partly because I don't really remember the biker guy, as by that time I had already zoned out. The film was way too long, in my opinion. All right.
Wow. A little column A, a little column B. Okay.
Do you have a nomination for us? Do you have a Barbarian for us?
I do, but I'm torn because I have two, and I did make a case more so for one than the other, so I think I'm going to go with my heart and my conscience. I think I'm picking Frank, just because on the face of it, number one, I was like, because obviously the other one is AJ, the other contender, top contender.
Yeah.
But when the acts of one despicable man make the other despicable man wince and go, what the fuck is wrong with you? I feel like the evil may be imbalanced at that point. But that said, it's not about amount of evil. I think they're kind of equally evil, just like in different capacities or in different flavors of evil. Let's put it that way. And they both need to die. But also through the injustice of like the fact that Frank got to kill himself as opposed to be rendered asunder by his own Frankenstein's monster, as it were, with the mother, or
Maybe
get shot in the face by
Frank.
Tess. Yeah.
As an allusion to Frankenstein.
That's great. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Hey.
I'm just fucking grasping at straws here. I'm sure.
I know, but
there was a lot of references to like the term Barbarian, like the street that it was on was Barbary Street. The number of the house is apparently like the year. I was looking at the trivia. It was like the year that something to us associated with Barbarian.
Conan the Barbarian? I don't know.
Who knows?
Anyway. Okay, cool. So yeah, I choose Frank. That's my choice. I don't feel like too much more needs to be said about it because it's all distasteful and gross. Yeah. So how about you?
I assumed you were going to pick AJ. And in that case, because I had two, like, because I would have picked AJ had you not, but the other, I do want to give a dishonorable mention to Officer Number One, because because if you did pick AJ, I would not have picked Frank. I would have picked Officer One, because I feel that Frank is he's such a nothing character. He's so minor in the grand scheme of it, and he's an evil man. Evil characters are going to do evil things, whereas the officer is supposed to be on the side of good. He's being funded by taxpayer dollars, and he's clearly sees this woman in distress who has crawled out of, this is not like it's like a nice house in the middle of nowhere. More questions that we never even answered as to how AJ even ended up getting the one house that was like the murder house.
Right.
But clearly see that something is going on and does not take it seriously, and even threatens to put her in a holding cell for the night. So just even when she like first goes up to the car and he's like, please step back from the car. Like, that guy was just a piece of shit. I hated him. Yeah. He actually needed to die. Some way. But
absolute dishonorable mention.
Mention, but I have to go with AJ because, I mean, for all like just the fact that he's a shitty person, but also because I feel that character ruined the movie for me. So that's ultimately why I'm going with
That's
AJ.
my slow clap. That is so hilarious. You ruined the movie. You deserve to die.
You're bad for business. Get out of here.
You picking up Justin Long by the scruff and just throwing him out of the movie.
Someone need just get one of those like vaudeville, like the canes,
hooks,
just to like around his neck and just like yoink. Get him out of here.
Well, there you go.
So anyway, those are our nominations. Vote your heart, vote your conscience. You can vote on Instagram. Our handle there is @thecherrypickerpod. Follow us as well. Or you can vote on YouTube, the community section tab. Subscribe to us also. You can also vote on Patreon if you do support us there. And I would like to welcome some new Patreon supporters. So hello to Megan, Kyle, Julia, Corrupted Cam, KT Scream, Teddy C, Munoz, Ryan Dempsey, Jeremy Shea, Roy Garza Jr., Christine Miners or Mainers. I'm so sorry. I get tripped up. Lillian Segal, Matt, and Jonathan Reichert. So
yay, everybody!
Thank you to all those people for coming onto Patreon.
Welcome.
If you do support on Patreon, that is my Patreon, Zack Cherry. You will have early access to all of the podcast episodes before they release. If you are supporting on the Freddy Krueger tier, you will also get to see our Cherry Picker After Dark, the bonus monthly episode that we do. Last month we did Wild Things. This month we are continuing our Buffy the Vampire Slayer coverage, and we're on season 4 now. So Eddie and I are going to rank and discuss every episode, all 22 episodes of that season
for hours.
It's the last one. I think it was 4 hours or something, which brings me to another note, because I do want to thank Andre Felix, who is our editor, because he has to deal with all of that nonsense. So
yes,
thank you, Andre. But it's good for him because he's getting to discover Buffy for the first time as well. So that's a treat in itself. But anyway, if you are new to the Cherry Picker and you are listening to us, just know that you can watch us on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can listen to us as well. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Where can they find you on social media? I don't know why I started to sing that, but
I know, I'm trying to answer in kind. You can look for me.
You're doing like
anywhere,
a red us thing there.
You can find me. Yeah. You can look for me anywhere, but you can find me on Instagram @EdwardIsTruth, one word, and on YouTube @EdwardIsTruth. If you type Edward is Truth, one word, I should come up. Type Edward
not
is Truth
Eddie
channel.
is Truth, though.
Not Eddie is Truth, even though he is, but it doesn't sound as good as Edward is Truth. And plus, my acting teacher is the one who gave me that name, unbeknownst to him. How about you, Zack Cherry?
You can find me on YouTube at Zack Cherry, ZACK. There's actually the links, if you're on YouTube, in the channel sections. You can find either of us. I'm also on Instagram @RetroBitchface, and I'm on Twitter @ZackCherry8. What do we got going on next week?
That one with the thing, with the guy, and he's killing, and
great, love that one.
You thought I forgot, didn't you? No, it's that one with the Valentine that's not funny, but it's bleeding, and it's mine.
Oh, okay.
So it's my Bloody Valentine.
Is it dimensional or is it flat?
If it's bloody, isn't it more horrific if it's got dimensions?
I was more so referencing the fact that there's a 3D remake, and then there's a...
Oh, that one.
I don't know why I would refer to the original as flat, but...
I know, but ironically enough, I think the 3D one is the one that comes up flat. Hey-ho!
Oh.
Anyway.
So, anyway...
This one is good, though.
Yes.
I'm showing my hand, but I enjoy this one, so...
Yes, you're showing your hand after a minute and a half of teasing us. So yes,
people are gonna be like, "I hate that movie. I'm not listening because Eddie likes it." Find out how Zack feels. Next week.
We will be back next week with My Bloody Valentine. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll be right back.